Once upon a time, he was telling us that he wants South Africa to be like Cuba. Today, he has the audacity to tell us that China is the one that will do what is in the interest of South Africans. Clearly, there are no limits to the foolishness that comes out of the mouth of Floyd.
Then the issue we have consistently articulated as well in relation to the United States of America is that let's adhere to the vision of President Jacob Zuma on building sustainable relationships with the BRICS countries.
Before you believe these lies, let's make sure you understand this very well. At this stage, there is nothing that is made in South Africa that China cannot make faster or better or cheaper than South Africa. Regardless of what these communists say, China will not try to underperform in order to please Floyd or Jacob Zuma.
It's President Zuma who joined BRICS because he could foresee that the imperialist West will always want to bully the global South. And that is exactly what is happening now, that you must be told today tariff is 20%, is 30%, you must change trade relations and all of those things there.
At this stage, China will eat our lunch at anything. Actually, hang on. Maybe the only thing that China might not do as well as South Africans is to put on inappropriate skimpy clothing and dance to Amapiano music. Go to Woolies, go to Checkers, Pick n Pay, ShopRite, Pep, anywhere. It's China everywhere. You know what I'm talking about, right? Teacups made in China. Plates made in China, clothes made in China, shoes made in China, spoons made in China, a cutting board made in China. Who are you to assume that China will stop all of this just to do you any favors? We have been in BRICS with China for how long now? How many favors has China done for South Africa? Whether we like it or not, China is so efficient that they will see you invent something, they will learn from you and then do it way, way better than you ever will. They will copy your nice things, do them better, and sell your inventions back to you. This is called intellectual theft and simply being too good at learning how to do something. And remember that the labor force in China is not lazy like these NUMSA and COSATU labor forces have become right here in South Africa. These are people that are so disciplined and dedicated to their work that they will work hard to carve out their own little section in the world. Too many of the South African workers are too entitled to do what the Chinese workers are willing to do. This stage of laziness and incompetence where a money-making industry, we would have been the world leaders. Maybe China was not going to beat us at that.
We have got sustainable friendships that started when President Zuma was head of state and president, with Brazil, with Russia, with China, with India. That group of countries constitute almost 40% of the global population. That is a very huge market. Their economy combined is more than these countries of imperialism, the neo-colonial countries which oppressed the African continent. So America, UK, France, Japan, and all of those things in the G7, their economies are far smaller than the countries in the BRICS basket.
Have you ever heard of the term dark factory? Well, basically, dark factories are factories that are constantly operational in China, all day, every day, working 24 hours with no need for lights.
就是比如说我去过参观过多家工厂，比如说造袜子制造我们这个衣服的，它可能一个工厂里面真正的真人在工作的只有几个人，但他们却实现了过去几千人甚至上万人能够出现的产能。这个工厂。 它是黑灯工厂，灯不需要灯的。
I think it's crazy. In China, they do the factory 24 hours. They use the AI. They have a black factory, and of course we cannot compete. But we have to try. We have to try.
President Zuma has given us a compass as South Africa, as a people, that this is the direction that we must go. So South Africa should intensify its relationship with the BRICS countries, must utilize this 90-day period to now look for alternate markets.
Inside China's high-tech textile factories, new technologies are helping companies achieve greater efficiency. This company's digital upgrades enable over 400 smart high-speed water jet looms to operate automatically around the clock. Any malfunctions can be detected and resolved by humans using computer instructions. No mechanical tools or humans are needed.
So tell me, Floyd Shibambu, what can you possibly sell to China? What will they honestly need to buy from us that they can't make for themselves? What will you sell to the large Chinese market that they do not or cannot produce for themselves?
President Zuma has given us a compass as South Africa, as a people, that this is the direction that we must go.
给我们讲产生了双老大佬，生产效率提高了30%，损耗降到10%。通过这些技术创新，今年以来我们所销售突破1亿。
So South Africa should intensify its relationship with the BRICS countries. Must utilize this 90-day period to now look for alternate market.
According to Chinese government data, China's textile and garment exports hit $293.6 billion in 2023, making it the world's largest garment exporter.
We have got sustainable friendships that started when President Zuma was head of state and president, with Brazil, with Russia, with China, with India. That group of countries constitute almost 40% of the global population. That is a very huge market.
今年以来，我们本地666户服装加工企业通过设备改造和技术创新后，销售额已突破22亿元。
These technological innovations are now being pushed out across the country.
The only things that they will need from us are in the ground, the minerals in the ground or the agricultural produce. That's it. And guys, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't put it past the Chinese to start creating some synthetic minerals useful for their factories. They could do this instead of relying on African raw minerals. And you know what the worst part of all of this is? South Africa is not the producer of raw minerals. They can procure these from other nations, not just South Africa. China has already destroyed the textile industries in South Africa.
This is manufacturing employment in South Africa from 2008 and 2012 first quarter. And the law to create jobs but not jobs. We've gone from employing 2 million people to around 1.7 million people. We've lost about 300,000 jobs in manufacturing. The South Africa today is significantly bigger than it was before the recession. But we haven't grown jobs, as we can see here. And not only that, the problem is it's been built on debt and consumption. So the supply side of the economy has been absolutely neglected. And that's where manufacturing has fallen down. Mainly because of imports, and mainly because of imports from Southeast Asia. Not only China, but predominantly China, but also Vietnam, other incentive low-cost countries have killed. This is another point where you're not seeing enough in the media about the threat of China and what China is doing to. This is why I was so angry. The Freedom Foundation's comments that actually it's very good, very cheap imports into this country. When you look at this decoupling, it's incredibly worrying. Imports were still less balanced last year, even though it was still, the economy was sluggish. But here we've seen a massive deviation where imports have exceeded exports. At the moment, China is exporting employment. It's due to a number of factors. Obviously, they have a number of unfair incentives.
Cindy Silipi is one of many facing possible job cuts in South Africa's embattled clothing manufacturing industry. The only employed person in her family of 7, she makes $34 a week ironing clothes. We earn very little, she tells me, but at least I can buy a pack of maize meal, some chicken pieces and a bus ticket. It's better than not earning anything at all. In a country with a staggering 36% unemployment rate, she's still one of the lucky ones. But that might not be for long.
They are not reaching the target we set.
Her boss, Alex Liu, says he's struggling to compete with Chinese imports. Ironically, he and about 45 or so members of the Chinese Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which he heads, came to South Africa a decade ago to exploit business opportunities. Now, he says, many of them are battling to stay afloat.
Some manufacturers that have come under extreme pressure now face the very real threat of closure. It's a reality that seems to have reignited. Thanks so much, Renato, for joining us this afternoon. Well, share with us your perspective on the situation on the ground at the moment and the realities that South Africa's textile industry currently has to contend with.
Afternoon, Alicia. Yes. A lot is going on in the industry, a lot of retrenchment, debate. Is it a sunset industry, or are we seeing the disintegration of the industry? There's a lot of concern about it for numerous reasons as well. And these are the reasons, or the same reasons that come up year after year, and that is cheaper imports. Can we in South Africa compete on a global stage? Is our labour skilled enough, or is South African major retail chain stores supporting the local industry?
It contributes 3.3% to its gross domestic product, but it has been hit by cheap imports, now shedding jobs and shuttering factories.
He's been in the clothing industry for over 50 years, and now he owns this Cape Town garment factory. But for Christopher Kinross, staying open is a fight. He's battling cheap Chinese imports from one side and international fast fashion brands like Zara and H&M on the other. Smuggling is another challenge. The Clothing and Textile Workers Union estimates almost half of all clothes are imported illegally to avoid taxes. And in the last 20 years, the industry shed around 2/3 of jobs. But in an effort to stem the tide, the government has been offering grants and loans.
As we speak, they're destroying the construction industry in our nation. Go ask organizations like the Black Business Council in the built environment. They will tell you that the Chinese are eating up the government tenders while they have BEE partners. They don't even transfer the skills to their BEE partners. They are just there to take, and take. Listen to this.
The BBCBE wants the local construction sector protected from foreign players, particularly from China.
We have got sustainable friendships that started when President Zuma was head of state and president, with Brazil, with Russia, with China, with India.
Look, what we have obviously experienced is the influx of Chinese construction companies into the local market. And one striking feature of these companies is that they are majority owned by the Chinese government. And so the problem that we're having is that, the local construction companies are finding it quite difficult to compete against these companies, which are here obviously to try and dominate the local market because of the capacity that they have amassed over the years through implementing significant construction projects in China.
Let's adhere to the vision of President Jacob Zuma on building sustainable relationships with the BRICS countries.
Well, the reality is that they are coming in significantly cheaper compared to our local companies. Secondly, to the point that you are making around supply chain, what we are witnessing is that they are undermining our localization, policies by maximizing, the imports that they can bring in from China. So we are definitely not benefiting our local, manufacturing sector, through the Chinese companies as they, maximize importing as much as possible from China.
That's the China that Floyd Shibambu wants us to rely on. What are you? A liar? A loony? A bit of both, maybe? You're there constantly lying to South Africans, putting deceptive ideas in their minds. Floyd Shibambu talks about BRICS markets, knowing that China owns those markets. Why would the Chinese buy our expensive produce when they can produce 10 times what we produce and way cheaper than we produce it at? Floyd Shibambu thinks that if he and Jacob Zuma lick the boot of the Chinese, China will do South Africa favors. This, ladies and gentlemen, is how these fools sell off our countries and our resources.
They could foresee that the imperialist West will always want to bully the global South. And that is exactly what is happening now, that you must be told today tariff is 20%, is 30%, you must change trade relations and all of those things there.
Trump is doing what is good for America. Tariffs are good in order to bring back industries into America. South Africa needs to place tariffs on these imports from China, or else people will keep on buying container loads of goods from Temu and Shein while neglecting proudly South African goods. If with all of our minerals and large population we can't make our own spoons and plates, then what are we doing? What are we doing, guys? We need to scrap the minimum wage nonsense. We need to scrap the unions from the government. We need to manage our imports better. We need jobs and we need industries in South Africa. Not this thing of constantly relying on China for every little thing. China will do what is best for China, just as America is doing what is best for America. When will South Africa do what is best for South Africa? Regardless of what this communism-loving comrade Floyd wants you to believe, even countries that are friends of China have been known to put tariffs on Chinese products. Why? Because they want to protect their industries.
We have got sustainable friendships that started when President Zuma was head of state and president, with Brazil, with Russia, with China, with India.
ASEAN's largest economy, Indonesia, has also banned e-commerce firm Temu over fears its small enterprises could be destroyed. The Indonesian government has said it was looking at imposing duties of up to 200% on some Chinese imports.
We have got sustainable friendships that started when President Zuma was head of state and president, with Brazil, with Russia, with China, with India.
It is not just in Southeast Asia where there are concerns around Chinese exports. Chile, Mexico, Brazil, and India have all imposed anti-dumping measures on some Chinese exports.
We have got sustainable friendships that started when President Zuma was head of state and president, with Brazil, with Russia, with China, with India.
China is responsible for the closure of many industries and many nations across the world.
Things are not looking good for one of Indonesia's largest textile companies, Sritex. Black armbands worn by employees and management alike send a desperate plea: save Sritex. At one point, Sritex was the largest textile company in Indonesia, employing 50,000 people directly and indirectly, according to Indonesian media. In 2020, the firm did nearly $1.3 billion in sales and posted a net profit of $85 million. 4 years later, its fortunes have turned. What happened?
Sritex is the biggest supplier for fabric in Indonesian market. When the market flooding by China fabric, of course it will also impact to Sritex. Yeah. So the problem in Sritex is almost the same with another company, because the market is flooded by China fabric.
Sritex is not the only Indonesian textile company in crisis. According to data from the Indonesian Filament Fiber and Yarn Producers Association, from 2023 to the end of 2024, 60 textile companies closed, and an estimated 250,000 workers were laid off.
Also, because the impact is not only in textile sector, the impact in social and other sector also, like logistic, also like housing, and many sector the impact is.
The Indonesian textile industry is facing intense competition from China in two ways. First, in the domestic market.
The price is very cheap. Yeah. China can sell with lowest price, I think, because the dumping. We can look in US, in Europe, in Vietnam, in India. Yeah. Many China product, they impose the anti-dumping duty for the China product. Yeah, so I think all over the world is the same problem with the China dumping.
The US was once a stronghold of solar module manufacturing, accounting for around a quarter of global solar module shipments in the early 2000s. But that all changed around 2010 when Chinese manufacturers gained comparative advantage. Dozens of US solar factories shut down. The Biden administration tried to rebuild the US solar industry with generous subsidies from the Inflation Reduction Act, which channeled $430 billion to clean energy industries. In November 2024, the same administration announced tariffs on solar imports from Southeast Asia of up to 271%, citing reasons of anti-dumping and anti-subsidy. These tariffs expanded further under the Trump administration. Solar manufacturers in Southeast Asia are almost all from China, as Chinese companies possess unrivaled technological advantage.
Be it America, South Africa, Germany, Britain, China has closed down. Well, they've been responsible for the closing down of those industries because a lot of the countries are unable to compete with China.
U.S. industry leaders and analysts say Chinese tech policy does a few things. Imposes a high cost of entry. American companies are forced to turn over key technology just to enter the market. They describe it as a kind of pay-to-play in the world's second largest economy. Then matchmaking. In some key industries like China's energy, telecom, and auto sectors, U.S. companies have to form joint ventures with domestic firms. That means transferring valuable technology, intellectual property to the local company, allowing then local firms to create their own new products in their own new technology. So while the possible payoff is high for innovators, so is the cost to their home country. One estimate says the U.S. loses as much as $600 billion a year to IP theft, and China is considered a major infringer. China's response to international concerns? It's simple. The premier said last year, "We will fully implement our plan of developing strategic emerging industries," end quote. Translation, hand over the secrets, or you can stay out.
104% tariffs on China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it, sell it back here. Never has an administration.
400% tariffs? What would that look like?
I want Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. It's just not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. I have nothing against the Chinese people. They brought great literacy, art, and tech to the world. The government cheats and steals, and finally, an administration, you may not like Trump, you may not like his style or his rhetoric, finally, an administration that puts up and says enough. 400% tariffs tomorrow morning. He'll tell you why. Xi can only stay the supreme leader if people are employed. If we wipe out any business there, because we are still 39% of all consumables on Earth and 25% of the world's GDP, America is the #1 economy on Earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now.
Well, now, who do you want to listen to? A seasoned businessman or a seasoned looter? It's ultimately up to you, but my advice to you is stop listening to these MK and EFF kinds of people. They want us to hate the West, to hate America, hate Britain, Germany, and all the Western countries because of what happened hundreds of years ago. They want us to forever blame these countries for slavery, when today, in these modern times, there is still slavery taking place in the African continent, and they're just mum about it. They want us to burn bridges with nations that chose to abolish slavery while they are saying absolutely nothing about countries that are acting out slavery in 2025.
With Brazil, with Russia, with China, with India. That group of countries constitute almost 40% of the global population. That is a very huge market. Their economy combined is more than these countries of imperialism, the neo-colonial countries which oppressed the African continent.
Guys, South Africa is a free nation and we can decide our own path. No one said we have to be enemies with the enemies of China. Why not be like Singapore and fight no one? Why not be like Switzerland and sell to everyone and buy from everyone? Communists like ANC, MK, EFF, SACP and others have really lied to South Africans. They've made many South Africans believe that they have to hate the West and love the East.
Because you could foresee that the imperialist West will always want to bully the global South.
Many South Africans have been fed this propaganda and sadly many believe it. What is the propaganda? It's simply America bad, China good, Britain bad, Russia good, East good, and West bad. That is such flawed logic, guys. Don't ever fall for that lie. China is responsible for many of you not having jobs right now, from jobs in the steel industry to jobs in the textile industry.
China exports goods worth $439 billion to the US. Those goods will now be uncompetitive in America. Simply put, they will be too expensive. So China will look to sell them elsewhere, and India could be a prime target. The most populous country in the world, a surging middle class, and a short hop from Chinese ports. Many experts are predicting the shift. They feel China could dump goods in the Indian market. Now, dump does not mean literally dump. It's a term used in global trade. Again, let's look at a hypothetical example. Say China produces a plastic toy at home. They sell it for $3 in the Chinese market, but the same product is also exported to India, and here in India, they sell it for $2. So the export price is less than the domestic price. Such a scenario is called dumping. Countries do it to expand their market presence, basically to sell more goods abroad. Many experts feel that China could start doing this to India, flood our markets with cheap imports. If you're a consumer, this may sound like a good thing to you. Who doesn't like a good deal after all? But dumping is bad for Indian producers. They will not be able to compete with cheap Chinese products. So Indian industry will be affected. And how is New Delhi addressing this? Let me quote what Indian officials have said. The government will take measures available in our legal framework, both direct and indirect steps to curb any dumping of products from nations facing steep tariffs from the US will be taken.
We have got sustainable friendships that started when President Zuma was head of state and president, with Brazil, with Russia, with China, with India.
India has already imposed anti-dumping duties on China. Last month, 5 Chinese imports were targeted, like vacuum flasks, aluminum foil, and disinfectants. Before that, solar glass was targeted. This is a particular type of glass used in solar panels. India imposed extra duties on this glass, about $660 per ton.
We have got sustainable friendships that started when President Zuma was head of state and president, with Brazil, with Russia, with China, with India.
Now, reports say more such moves are being considered, especially for the steel sector. The government is mulling a 20% duty on Chinese steel imports. This would nullify fears of steel dumping.
There's concern but cautious optimism among Brazilian poultry farmers and exporters regarding Chinese anti-dumping measures. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce has imposed a temporary surcharge of up to 38.4% on Brazilian broiler chickens, arguing its investigation into Brazilian imports showed a flood of imported products sold at below market prices damaged the Chinese industry.
Many of you work in shops like Sportsy, Nike, Total Sport, Adidas. Do you realize that the presence of the counterfeit goods on the street is actually risking your jobs? Do you realize that the presence of the fake tracksuits, caps, sneakers, and sports shirts on Bree Street and Jippy Street and many other streets across the nation is putting your job at risk? Now, who do you blame for the presence of Chinese counterfeit smuggled goods in South Africa? America? Britain? The West? No, these things came from China and they've been allowed into South Africa by the ANC. So who do you blame? You blame the ANC. Sadly, you'll never hear them say anything about it. You'll never see the EFF or the MK Party doi at GP or Bree Street or anywhere where these counterfeit goods are being sold. The EFF and the MK will not go there to doi. No one will complain to tell these shops to buy locally produced spoons, textile toys, and other goods. They just keep quiet because it is being done by their friend China. For years, our factories have been shutting down. Now, how are you going to compete against a factory in China producing 10,000 plates in a few hours when your unionized staff members are often on a go slow, producing only 1,000 plates per day? And why would China buy your plates that will be more expensive and not as sophisticated as theirs? I mean, you must put a higher price tag because you had to pay the employees minimum wage when China did not. You experience less production because you have unionized, overly entitled team members when China does not. You are using old methods when China is employing advanced technology. How do you compete in such an environment in your own country? Seriously, why would China buy your plates or any other goods? China will not open their markets to you, Floyd. You are begging to sell off our country to the East for what? Because America bad and China good? Go back to sleep, comrade. Dear South Africans, don't forget, this is the same person who said he wants South Africa to become like Cuba, a poor country like Cuba.
We want to be like Cuba and South Africa. We unashamedly want to pursue a progressive socialist agenda.
The evidence is there, fellow South Africans. It is now up to you to choose to support the nonsense or not. Please share this video with more citizens so that more people can wake up from the propaganda. If you enjoy our content and would like to support the work we do, please buy a t-shirt, join our membership, or donate to our accounts. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Katlego. This is Citizen Concerned. And until next time, beware of the comrades.